I'm thankful that you tuned in again for the Pastor's Porch. Tonight, I want to introduce somebody that's very special to me, Coach William DeVane. People from Hart County, they know who he is. If you're from South Carolina, I know you know who he is. He was on the national championship team back in the 80s.
81.
80. Oh, let's make sure of that right.
I get that right.
You're right. You're right. And just for him, I brought the sweat towel out because we're sweating. We've got the paw in here. So, Coach DeVane has become a great friend of mine throughout. I started in 2001 at Hart County when Coach Seagraves was coaching, and he had just left. And I remember something he said, and I brought this to his attention several times. I was coming off the field in 2001. I don't remember who we played. It was during the season, and you had visited. I think you were coaching. Where you coaching?
At Greene County.
At Greene County, yeah. Mm-hmm. And so he come off the field, and I think we'd gotten beat. I think, and he made a statement to one of our ball players. He asked this question. He said, "Did you leave it all on the field?" And I've never forgotten that because I know that's the way you played. I also know it's the way you coached because I got the opportunity to be with you a lot. But one of the things he always asked of his ball players, and I'll be honest with you, I think it's one thing that the Lord asked of us: did you leave it all on the field? Right. When everything's over with, one day when we're going on and we're going to stand before the Lord, and the Scripture says we will. I don't think he'll say, "Did you leave it all on the field?" But he may say something that alludes to that, saying, "Did you do everything you could to bring as many people with you as you can?" And so I've always thought about that when I don't even know who you were talking to, but I just remember you said that. Did you leave it all on the field? And that's kind of something I've always thought about.
Right.
Tell everybody where you are now. You were at Hart County for so many years in Central. Right. You were in Clark Central and
Clark Central
and Greene County. So tell us kind of what's going on with you right now.
Well, now my life is entering that new phase, that different phase. Because every time I'm around people now, I'm usually the oldest that I'm around because I'm back at Westside High School in Anderson, South Carolina. Assistant principal, got a wonderful administrative staff. Mr. Corey Roberts is our principal.
Oh, cool.
I'm just having the time of my life being an assistant principal there at Westside High School. And then I'm actually coaching JV football.
Wow.
Which is really no pressure.
Yeah.
I don't have to have the Friday night things I have to perform. So, but yeah, coaching JV football, and I'm actually the oldest on the staff now. Because I remember way back when I first came to Hart County in 1987 with Bobby Pate, I was the youngest on the staff. So, yeah, I'm the oldest on the staff, but just having the time of my life, enjoying my family, and we'll talk more about what's going on with my family. But, yeah, just having the time of my life, coaching JV football and being an assistant principal at Westside High School.
Now, you've got something that's going to happen big time tomorrow as well. Well, I see. When they read this, it was yesterday.
It was yesterday. That's
we're filming this on a Sunday evening, so it'll be actually tomorrow, Monday. Tell us what's going on in your life tomorrow.
Woo, you talking about something significant going on in my life, and this is, and I think one of the questions we're going to talk about what's some of my proudest moments. By far, the proudest moment, one of the proudest moments of my life when my two daughters were born. Dara, my oldest daughter, she's graduating virtually because, with the pandemic and the coronavirus. She's graduating tomorrow, which will be, the next day tomorrow, when this airs, she graduated from Emory University in Atlanta. And she's going to have a BA in linguistics with a minor in Korean. So now I don't know where she got those smarts from. She didn't get them from me. Be able to be accepted at Emory.
Oh man!
Just very proud of her and what she has accomplished. And she spent 8 weeks this past summer in Seoul, South Korea. So she's already got something lined up for March of 2021 to get back to Seoul, South Korea.
Wow!
So she's graduating from Emory, and then my youngest daughter. Brittany, she's a sophomore at Piedmont.
Yeah.
So
that's where Leslie went. She graduated from Piedmont. Yeah.
Leslie graduated from Piedmont. So Brittany will be going back this fall to continue her education and continue playing basketball. And of course, with this springtime pandemic, she missed out on track this year.
Wow. Okay.
But she participating in basketball and track.
Okay.
And she's majoring in business. So you talking about the proudest moments of my life? Wow. Those two young ladies there. Wow. I mean, this show's only a half an hour. I could spend days. I could spend days talking about those two. And then of course the day during the taping is Mother's Day. And just married to a wonderful wife, my wonderful wife Tish, who basically have taken care of the family while I was out coaching and that sort of thing. So, and I know you coaches out there and you coaches' wives understand that comment because coaches spend a lot of time away from their families.
You know, I will just say this. I think, and I've shared this with coaches when we were doing coaches' devotions when you were coaching and stuff, and I still believe this. I believe that coaching is a calling, just like maybe pastoring's a calling.
Right.
Because I not only believe that you have to be called, but I believe that your wife does too.
Right.
Like you said, there's a lot of times when, that you're gone. You're gone a lot of the times. And I'll be honest with you, a football coach, they don't. If you got them paid per hour, they make about $1.50 an hour. And I don't know if there's many people standing in line for that type of money.
Right.
But it takes a special woman to be able to be a coach's wife. I really believe that.
That's right. That's right.
Wife, well, you having trouble with this?
I'm having trouble with this thing here. Greg got me hooked up here.
Yeah, Greg. But I just think a shout out to our wives and coaches. They talk about people on the front line. You hear a lot of it right now. Well, I'll be honest with you. Coaches' wives, pastors' wives, they're on the front line.
Yes.
They're there when they're there to kind of they get the brunt of, everybody's talking about, we need to fire that coach. And she has to hear all that, So.
Yeah, my lovely wife Tish went through the ringers a lot. Of course, being a head coach, the head coach, they get the brunt of things when the team is not doing well. Then, like you said, it's time to fire the coach. Yeah. She went through a lot of that in the stands, and of course, she persevered through that. And even when you're winning, sometimes it's still not good. So, because why isn't my son playing?
Ooh,
so,
we don't have enough. We don't have enough.
I don't have enough time for that one. So
I know this is a loaded question, and when we were kind of previewing everything we was going to talk about before we started the camera, and you said I don't think I got enough time. I could go all day about that, but I want to ask you about the influences in your life.
Wow.
And now it could be. I'm sure that if you categorize your life, you had influence in football and maybe your faith, and then your family, and maybe just share a little bit about who are some influences in your life, even before or today, or.
Well, of course, the beginning, the bigger influence on my life from the beginning were my parents and my family. I grew up in a town in Jacksonville, North Carolina, on the East Coast. My dad was in the Marine Corps, military family, and I'm the youngest of 5. I got four older sisters.
I remember those sisters. Yeah, I do.
So that's a whole other story. Yeah. That's a whole other show. So yeah, the youngest of 5, got 4 older sisters. So my first influences were my parents and my sisters. My mom was a stay-at-home housewife. Very, very faith-driven, very religious. She was one of those praying mamas. We used to sing around the house and cook, that sort of thing. So yeah, she was very religious, and that instilled in me a lot at a young age. And then of course my dad, being in the Marine Corps, that work ethic was instilled in me from a young age. And a quick story about growing up, the buddies that I used to hang around with back in my neighborhood, everybody had brothers. Of course, I had the 4 older sisters, and no one could mess with me because my sisters would get them.
Had a tough sister.
Now, my sisters would mess with me. My sisters would always mess with me, but my sisters took care of me a lot. Then, of course, as I got involved in the athletics, I was blessed as a player to start coming in contact with just what I consider just tremendous men. I remember my little league coach name. His name was Mr. Limer, Coach Limer.
Wow.
And he influenced me, just the type of person he was. And then you get into junior high school. Back then it was junior high school. It wasn't middle school. It was junior high school. Then in high school, I had my sophomore year in high school. I had a former drill sergeant as a head coach.
God.
So I learned discipline over again
You got it
with
from
him,
home and
guy
on the
going
field,
with
didn't
him. And then my junior and senior years in high school, we got a new coach. His name Ray Durham, and he was that fatherly type figure. So I learned a lot from the men that led me, that I was coached on, that I played for, and I learned a lot. Took a lot of traits from them.
Yeah.
Then of course when I got to Clemson, Danny Ford was the head coach. Learned a lot of good things from Danny Ford. Again, we'll talk more about Clemson, my days at Clemson. But real quickly, and I was drafted when I finished playing at Clemson. I was drafted by the Miami Dolphins.
Right.
And just recently in the news, the passing of Don Shula. Don Shula was the coach at Miami when I was drafted, when I was trying out with the Dolphins.
How about that?
So just along the steps away, there were a lot of influences. My pastors, I got so many pastors that influenced me along the way. Growing up, we had a wonderful pastor at our church growing up, Pastor Wooten. I even remember his name. Just down to earth, very wonderful. Spoke the word, taught the word. Then, of course, when I got to Clemson, and then my professional career here in teaching, just every place I've lived, I've been very blessed to have good pastors in my life, and you're definitely Chris is definitely one of them. So I've had good people in my life that preach the word, and give me that faith driven feeling. So I've been very blessed.
What would you say? Not everybody can talk on these lines because of playing high school ball, then college ball, and then getting drafted into the pros. What would you say is the connection? Because I know that having values before you get there is so important. Having a foundation,
Right.
And it sounds like you had that with your mom and your pastors and stuff like that. But where was your faith great? Where was the greatest place that your faith was tested when you got to? Well, in your career.
Wow. There's been a lot of times that my faith was tested. Becoming a parent for the first time.
Ooh, I understand.
That was scary. That was scary. Losing my job, losing my coaching job. I actually was fired from Clark Central. I was given a choice to either resign or I was going to be fired. And I had promised to my players, we were going through a kind of stretch of a hard time. I promised my players that I wouldn't quit on them. So I told the administration, no, I'm not going to resign because I view that as quitting on my players. So I got fired from coaching. And then the prospect of coaching was very grim. I didn't have any other places to go, anything in the works, anything. And I remember a quick story. I remember we were living in Winterville, Georgia. It was just a small town right outside of Athens.
Yeah.
And we went to church, just a typical Sunday, come home from church, and I was sitting out in the living room watching football, of course, watching NFL football. And Tish and the girls were back in the bedroom, and there she had to be maybe 10 years old, just a little bitty something. So she comes running out to the living room, hands me a note, and then runs back in the room. And I'm sitting here thinking, like, what in the world she just handed me? So I opens it up, and just in her handwriting, she wrote something to the effect that everything's going to be all right. You're going to get another job, and we're going to be happy.
Wow.
And this is after 3 months of not knowing where I was going to be coaching at, where I was going to be teaching at.
Wow.
So even the young little ones know that, faith is a good thing. Faith is a good thing. And throughout my playing career, injuries, you have to deal with injuries. You have to have faith, dealing with injuries, coming back from injuries. And then even and we talked earlier about coaching. It's a basically a daily grind, daily grind, and your faith is going to be tested because you're dealing with teenagers usually. If you're coaching on the high school level, you're dealing with teenagers, and And you have to understand that. And and after every game on a Friday night, and Greg can tell you this, part of my prayer was I would tell them, I said, teenagers and weekends. Keep these teenagers safe over the weekend. Bring them back to me because it's a tough road. But yeah, your faith is tested as an administrator, as a coach, as a father, as a husband.
Yeah.
So you go through a lot of things.
I know you know this, but a lot of people may not know, and there's a lot of guys that may see this that played for you or that are an acquaintance to you or they coached with you or whatever. And I'm saying a lot of things that you've heard me say when we've kind of been in a smaller area, but one of the things I know is that coaches, number one, they don't coach for the money. In high school, you don't make that kind of money. In college, if you're a D1 very successful, you may make some big dollars, whatever. But here's what I've learned in the coaching profession. A lot of these guys don't have what they may have a male in the home. They don't have a father in the home, and they look at guys like you as a role model, as a father, and there's a lot of stress, there's a lot of pressure because you may be hanging out with your family, and then you get a call from one of these boys that they need you, and that's when you got to move. That's when you got to be mobile. I sent these questions to Coach DeVane. I think it was night before last, and he came back with me. And he says, "You put a question here about how is coaching and pastoring, how they relate." He said, "Pastoring? Wait a minute now, I'm not." But what I meant by that is he's got a congregation. He's got a congregation every single season. He got 60, 70 kids, plus their parents, plus coaches, plus he may have 200 people that he has to make sure that everything's taken care of. So I know that they are not the same, but there's a lot of similarities. What do you think maybe some of them are? You've been around church long enough to know what the pastor does, but as a head coach, and we don't have to take long on this because I want to kind of get to our Clemson, your Clemson days, but what do you think some of those similarities are that you've seen that you've had to deal with?
The biggest thing I could think of is being the leader, because you are, as a head coach, you're the leader. Like you said, you leading those teenagers, you leading those parents, you leading those assistant coaches, you leading those fans, you leading the board of education, people that want in the booster club that want you to win every game without So you have to be responsible as a leader, and to me, there are certain responsibilities that come with being a leader. And I tell people that you have to develop a personality where you can get people to buy into what you preaching, basically, as a coach, and that's basically what you do as a preacher. You got to get people, you get your congregation to buy into what you preaching. So as a coach, you do the same thing. You have to get those people, those players, those parents, the administration to buy in what you preaching. Now, a lot of coaches try to do it falsely and try to do it out of their character and try to, basically lie their way into it. But I was always a firm believer that if you're gonna try to lie to a group of teenagers, they gonna figure that out pretty quick. So you have to be genuine.
It's like a dog.
That's right. You have to be genuine. Just the same as being a pastor. If you try to lie to a congregation, they're gonna figure that out pretty quick.
Yes,
so I guess coaching and pastoring does have a lot of similarities.
You didn't know you was a pastor.
I didn't know that. But being a leader, I think is the one of the main qualities that coaching and pastoring have in common, because you have to be responsible. You're responsible for a lot of people. Every action that you do. And a lot of times coaches say, well, I'm this, I'm that, I'm a grown man, I can do what I want to do, I can say what I want to say, I can go. No, you can't, unless you want to rub a lot of people the wrong way. You have to be careful where you go. You have to be careful what you say. You got to be careful, because there are eyes on you all the time. All the time. It never shuts off. Never shuts off.
I want to say this before I ask you about Clemson. Okay. If you can see, he keeps wearing this ring. He keeps shining it. I want to make sure you know what that was. They don't give those things in the bubble.
They don't give these things away. Those are.
But I want to say this so I don't forget it, and that is that I've had the opportunity in the last 25 years to work with a lot of different coaches. Mm-hmm. And I don't say that just because you're sitting here, but the reason that I ask you to sit here is because of what I'm about to say.
Right.
Coach DeVane is one of those guys that he's the same every time I've ever seen him. He's the same in the locker room. He's the same at the grocery store. He's the same sitting around the living room. It's the same at a Clemson game. One of the things I've learned about him, he's just a real guy. And I've worked for a lot of coaches. Only a few of them can I say that. Mm-hmm. You have accepted me and the ministry, and here's we started doing 12th man ministry, and there's always a lot of legal things we put on the preacher. Hey, don't say this, and make sure you're this. And one of the things that Coach DeVane did for me, and I can really say this with freedom right now because Coach DeVane's not there anymore. But he gave me an open slate, and I can't say thank you enough, because I see guys now that where God changed their life in a devotion or through a season or whatever, and it's because of guys like him that didn't put any limits on us. And then, listen, we weren't going to do anything to try to get kicked out of school, but a guy like Coach DeVane, because it's personal in his life, he allowed the preacher to share from the scriptures.
Right.
And realizing the scripture is the only thing that's going to change people's lives. So I just want to say thank you for that. I want to say thank you for allowing me as your chaplain for all those years to just to have the freedom, to break open God's word.
Well, I definitely appreciate that, because I really learned a long time ago developing relationships in whatever business you're involved in is probably one of the key ingredients in being successful. And there's measures of success. Like some people measure their success by money, how much money they have. Some people measure their success by how much fame they have, fame and fortune type deal. But my biggest thing is how solid are the relationships you have built throughout your years. Yeah. And I can go back to the guys that I've coached. A lot of my former players end up coaching with me.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah,
and guys that if I stayed in business long enough, guys that come back and tell me that you did, looking at you, coach, influenced where I am in my life, and that's, you can't put a price tag on that.
You can't.
So developing relationships, and I even do that now with the JV players that I'm working with now at Westside High School.
Sure.
You have to develop relationships with them,
right.
It's not overnight. It's not going to happen overnight. You just can't be overbearing when you meet people.
Right.
You just kind of be yourself and let that take a natural course.
Yeah, I just like I say, coaches are not just X's and O's. I learned that because they knew that I didn't know anything about X's and O's. Baseball was kind of my sport, so I didn't. I walked into they were talking about all these plays. I'm thinking, dude, I'm going to share a devotion and I'm going to get out of here,
Well, there's a lot of coaches that don't know a lot about X's and O's either.
So in other words, maybe I could go in there and coach, right? I want to finish up. As I said, Coach DeVane played at Clemson University. He's a national champion. You see the ring. I want to. He bleeds orange. I'm gonna tell you now. Denise, she bleeds orange too. And I've got a little touch of orange in me now that I've come here all these years.
That's right.
I bled gold and yellow. Gold and blue for a while. You know where that down there on 85, 75.
Yeah.
That school down there.
There you go.
We'll talk about that as much. So especially I'm sitting here in Clemson. But I want to just kind of give us a. I know you said a highlight was your daughters, and I totally get that. I got 2 kids of my own. Give us just a rundown of the highlights of playing ball, getting recruited, going to Clemson, just what that was like, and that's how we'll finish up our time.
Wow, that back when I was in high school, it was kind of funny. Back in North Carolina, in the late '70s, when I was becoming a pretty good football player, I was starting to get a lot of notices about different colleges, and of course, coming from the East Coast of North Carolina, there's a lot. North Carolina State, I've visited that campus so many times. East Carolina, in Greenville, North Carolina, Chapel Hill, Duke. you think about the back of road schools, and you think, people are probably wondering, that's probably where I'm gonna end up somewhere in North Carolina.
Right.
Then I remember being at home, and the first time I ever even heard of Clemson was when they played Ohio State in one of those bowl games, and I think it was 1978, either 78 or 79, the infamous game where Woody Hayes, lost his mind and punched the Clemson player.
I was wondering if that was it.
That was and I'm sitting there looking, and I'm sitting here, where's I've never heard of Clemson. I was wondering where Clemson's at. So they said it was in South Carolina. So that got Clemson on my radar.
Right,
so I said, well, I need to go visit Clemson because of course, and this is one thing I always tell prospective college athletes, whether it's a guy playing football, a girl, whoever, you need to go visit that campus. Mom and dad is fine. They'll tell you where they want you to go, but mom and dad is not going to be there for you for those 4 years.
Right,
so you need to go visit that campus and make sure you feel like this is where you need to be. So I made up my mind. So I need to go visit Clemson. As soon as I got on that campus, I said to myself, this is it.
Yeah.
I felt at home.
Yeah.
And that's, not saying that Clemson was Clemson was not the only place I ever visited.
Right.
Because being from North Carolina, I was on NC State campus a lot, North Carolina, Duke, East Carolina. So I was on a lot of college campuses. But there was something about Clemson. When I visited Clemson, and I came back home from my visit, and I told my dad and my mom that I want to go to Clemson. My dad was happy. My mom liked to hit the roof. Where's Clemson? It's 7 hours. 7 hours away from here. You going 7 hours? So just that whole process, that recruiting process, and learning, knowing what I want, and learning the people, learning the area, brought me to Clemson. Wow. And if I had to do it over again, I would pick Clemson again. Wow. It was just a great feeling. Yeah. Great feeling. Yeah. And then once I got there, Coach Danny Ford, he recruited me, came out to Jacksonville, North Carolina, and met my parents, came watch me practice, and he just seemed like just the nicest coach. I said, well, I want to play for that guy one day. So, funny story, when we first got there, when I first got on campus for that first practice, I wonder if that was the same coach I had talked to.
A little different.
A little different. Yeah. So I know this is a family show, so I can't repeat too many of the words he was using. But I said, man, he looked different than he was when he came visit me in North Carolina. But the thing I found out real quick about Danny Ford is that, and I learned this part as far as me being a coach, he cared for his players. Yeah. And he would do anything for his players. And I kind of developed a mentality like that in my coaching career. Ford would push us hard, and sometimes we thought he was the craziest man on earth. But he cared for us as players. Yeah. Yeah. So that was a lot of the things that I took away from Clemson. The assistant coaches were the same, and there's just the atmosphere. And of course, being able to play and fulfilling my dream, I dreamt of playing in the NFL. And then, of course, the closer I got to being a senior and being drafted, I was able to live that dream. Wow. And got drafted by the Miami Dolphins. And then, of course, you always have those good fortune, then something bad happened. And I remember when I got cut by the Miami Dolphins. And that was, matter of fact, that was the first fall that, since I was 8 years old, that I was not going to be playing football. Wow. And that was really earth-shattering. Wow. Because you think about it, the way they do it, I'm pretty sure they do it basically the same way down in the NFL. You're asked to come meet with the head coach but bring your playbook. So when they ask you to meet the head coach and bring your playbook, then they're about to release you. So when Don Shula handed me that one-way ticket back to Jacksonville, North Carolina, I got on that plane, I actually cried like a baby because I had no idea what I was going to do that fall. But then once I landed in Jacksonville and got home and talked with my parents and said, well, I need to graduate from college, from Clemson. So I went back, got my degree, and then dusted myself off and got back into it. Actually had another tryout with the Buffalo Bills and got cut again. And then once I got my degree, then I got into the workforce. So that time at Clemson University was a very important time in my life. I told my youngest, both of my daughters, the thing about going to college, you learn more about yourself than we can teach you here at home.
Sure, sure.
So you learn perseverance, you learn how to handle situations, you learn how to get knocked down and get back up. So there's a lot of things you learn when you're out on your own.
Yep.
So
Yep.
those a lot of life lessons I learned at Clemson University.
Well, I wanted to have Coach DeVane here just because we with him being in South Carolina now and not Hartwell, and then we're not. He's coaching. I'm not with him like I was. You know, sometimes you kind of separate. You don't see each other as much. But I just can't get past all the things that there was. There's so many good times that we had, and I know that there's so much of a backstory to when we enjoyed our time together at Hart County, but a backstory of Clemson, and you don't hear a lot of those things behind the scenes of somebody getting drafted, and then when they get cut. You don't know that side of it.
Right.
It's just big fanfare now. We even had the virtual draft this year. But I just want to say thank you for being on my porch tonight. I love you and your family, and I'm appreciative of everything that you've done for us and what you've done for Hart County. And now you're in South Carolina there, but like you said, those relationships to me. In 25 years of being around coaches and stuff, it's the same with me. It's just so many relationships that I've built. The last thing I'll share is that during this shutdown, he was just telling me that West Side, I know that Hart County, I see the buses every day during the week, but the lunchroom ladies and the lunchroom staff, they're showing up at school. I know many other people are, but I just want to shout out to them. They show up, they fix meals. And then at West Side, just like they're doing at Hart County, they're carrying food to houses. And on the weekend, they have double, triple portions because they need it for the weekend. And I just want to say, to you, I didn't know that until he told me, but I will say thank you to guys, to you men and ladies who are on the front lines. I consider that a frontline deal there as well. I know that maybe you're one of those receiving meals, and you couldn't be more thankful. Or maybe you're that teacher that's showing up when everybody else is staying at the house and you're showing up and that kind of thing. I just want to say that, thank you. I say thank you to Coach DeVane, but I say thank you to all of our teachers and stuff that are out there that are still working those hours and making sure that we're taking care of our kids and that kind of thing. I want to ask you if you would just to pray us out of here. I want to thank you for being here. I just want him to pray for families. Maybe you found yourself in a place, maybe you've lost your job, or maybe you're one of the ones receiving those meals, whatever the case may be. I just want you to know that God knows who you are and what your need is. So I'm going to ask Coach DeVane to pray for you and your family and just to close us out in word of prayer.
Sure, I'll be glad to. Again, before I do that, Chris, I want to thank you for having me here. Really appreciate that, and just kind of reiterate the fact that what Chris just mentioned about the frontline people, you may think your job is insignificant, but if you're helping someone, if you're helping feeding a child, if you're helping taking care of someone, if you can minister to people in a lot of different ways. My niece is a nurse in Birmingham, Alabama, on the front line. So just God bless all of you, and my hats go off to you because you're doing a tremendous job in this time of this pandemic.
Exactly.
And you may think your role is insignificant, but if you're helping someone, your role is very significant.
No doubt. No doubt about it.
I'd like to thank you, Chris, and appreciate you and your family. And again, just people out there, stay strong before we get into this prayer. Just stay strong, and God will see us through. We gonna be okay.
Yeah.
God is gonna see us through. Okay. Let us pray. First and foremost, I want to give honor to God. I want to thank you for these friends and these families, these relationships that I have built and acquired over the years. I want you to continue to bless everyone during this pandemic, during these difficult times. A lot of people need some direction. They need to hold on to their faith. The faith will get you through a lot of dire situations. Right now, it just seems so dark and seems impossible. But I want you to shelter these people, cover them with your blessings, God, and keep them safe, keep them strong, because this too shall pass, this too shall end, and we will come through on the other end of this. I want you to continue to bless Chris and his family. I want you to continue to bless Hart County and my new home, West Side High School, the people involved in that community, those communities, and then again, continue to touch these people and continue to keep them safe. And Lord, I want you to just bless us now. Continue to let us have faith in what you're doing, because ultimately you know where we're gonna be, and you're gonna guide us to that direction, and you're gonna keep us safe. In your name and your holy and blessed name, amen.
Amen. Thank you for joining us on the Pastor's Porch. Coach DeVane, thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you for Tish for sharing him with us for a little Mother's Day.
On Mother's Day.
I appreciate that. Hey, I hope you have a great day. Stay safe. We'll see you next week on the Pastor's Porch.